As many of you already know, I'm actually, besides head of academics, I'm also an economics teacher for many, many years now. And, as a teacher in humanities and, being in this profession, a lot of us, as educators, end up having, all these friendly conversations within our class while we try to apply our concepts, apply the learning, and while students start making meaning of the world around them, right? And that's partly, what we have to do as educators, let them have that sense of belonging and also reflect upon what's happening around us. Yes. So it also makes, while that's our role, it also comes back to us as individuals in how we play our role in society as a whole. And it really made me, situations and stories that come in my classroom actually make me think about what my perspectives are. Where do I stand? What do I think? So in the current context, actually, I was looking at, had a talk with Giorgio, about this TED talk. I was like, right, I have actually had a couple of situations that I was thinking about. I was going around. You had families and friends and students all talking about the context that we find ourselves in Romania, right? A nation fairly divided right now, or felt like that during the elections. Thankfully, that's kind of past us. But it makes you think, this is not unique to Romania. It's not unique. And I'm not here to talk about politics, please, even though this slide might suggest that. But, we do have to think about how does this filter into society? How does this affect our educators? How can us as educators make children feel part of this, changing world in a comfortable way? So what we noticed in this map, I went and I started looking into this, and I'll talk about, an idea that came to me. It didn't come just to me, but as an independent entity away from society. It came from what I saw around me, some private conversations I had with some people that influenced this thought process. That I said, okay, Georgia, I think I've got something for you. So here we go, a nation divided. I looked it up and I'm going, yeah, it's interesting. You've got some pockets that were very strongly populist, wanting, a change in the system, but in a very deeply fractured sort of sentiments. It seemed like it, right? That's what the news stories told us. That's what people were telling us in their conversations. If you sat to have, a coffee with somebody from a different socioeconomic background, the conversations, the sentiments were very different. It was interesting. Okay. But I did kind of make certain circles, right? You've got the greens and you've got the oranges. And I tried to zoom in on the four that are deeply in a particular perspective than the other four that are green. Right. Let's also look at what happened, right? Many of us are probably already aware, and we already had, this again was all over the news. There is an impact, basically, politics, whether we don't want, we don't want to meddle into that. We don't want it to come into our daily lives too much necessarily. But, there was this consequence. So, and as an economics teacher now, going back to why I told you I'm actually an economics teacher, this got brought into my classroom. Somebody mentioned it, and I go, right, yes, we should talk about it to some extent, right? Understand what's happening, make sense, be able to interpret the information. There is a possibility, even though we see the Romania S&P credit rating is stable, but then the market signals are quite concerning, right? So this is the context we are facing ourselves in. But then now we have to step back and see what can we actually, what's caused this, maybe? What's caused this rift? I hear there will be WhatsApp groups of friends where people go, oh, education is the key. Education is something that divides us, or lack of, or having. Is it about money? What's the cause of the disparity? And is it going deeper? Is it going to cause such a big rift among people who, see themselves as friends and neighbors and family, and we dance together and we laugh together? What's happening? Is there a problem? What's causing this? I went and looked up, searched, got this study, saw this study about that was mapping the poverty on the map in Romania, and you've got the same four poorest regions were heavily voted in a certain direction. And makes you wonder, it's the makes you wonder the realism where people comes from. Is it just that educational gap? Are those people just, not aware of the consequences of their choices and their actions? What's causing it? Maybe there is that disillusionment that's probably linked. Again, can't draw too many lines yet. I will show you some other observations before I look into what we as educators and as schools could be moving forward with. Right? Okay. If there's a sense that dignity is absent, democracy might feel hollow, because we find, there was a lot of discussions around democracy and politics. Again, that's not economics, but whether we like it or not, social sciences tend to sort of blur lines once in a while, right? Then I looked into, okay, what's happening with education? Because, the central discussion people are having around this is it, are those people who are voting seemingly non-democratic directions or so on, like, is there an educational related background to this? It's interesting. And these kind of patterns are not unique to Romania. This is kind of mapped, again, sourced from somebody else, not my original, didn't have time to my own studies on this. It'd be a major commitment to publish something like that for sure. So team over there found that from their studies, educational hubs, very normal, right? In any country you go, there would be educational hubs. Bucharest, right there, major educational hub where, it takes talent, it takes people from all those neighboring counties. You have educational hubs in Iași and in Timișoara, right there. Okay, Constanța, right? They also kind of link and kind of go hand in hand with that red and green sort of voting tendencies. What's happening, your talents and so on are going to these cities, right? And it's forming a pool, so to speak. Peripheries tend to shrink. Again, it's not unique to Bucharest. It's not unique to Romania. It's not unique to the situation we're facing or that we have faced, consequences of which we will continue to live for a bit, right? And makes you wonder, right? The rifts are not, even though the average voting or average sentiment in Bucharest in a certain direction might make you think these people coming from those families and those regions that were quite poverty stricken or had this may potentially deeply entrenched sense of disillusionment, you know, maybe even when those students come over to these centers, these hubs, these buzzing cities, maybe they still feel distant and disadvantaged. Maybe, they continue to lack mentors and exposure and confidence. And maybe we can do something about it. But before jumping into maybe the proposal, I want to look at what is out there. Again, we have to be responsible when we make suggestions or propose solutions. We got to look at what else is out there, what else have others proposed before. I just kind of looked into some theoretical frameworks that exist, quick research, yes. Okay, there's this model about educational theory, how social integration and academic integration, all of this have a big hand to play when you look at dropout rates and what's happening, right? Integration being the key word, right? Retention is really hinged upon integration of people. Okay? Sounds nice. You've got a sociological lens over there. What's differentiating, the city dwellers who we tend to, perform well, or we have certain perspectives and do not feel disillusioned or, disenfranchised or any of those things, sentiments do not kick in. We tend to have what this Bourdieu's research calls Bourdieu's capital. Yes, the social capital has all these dimensions. It's not just about the finance. It's not just about the money. It's about cultural capital. It's about exposures to museums, to these kind of lovely events where all these wonderful people speak and share insights into, the marketing world, the world of IT, the world of education, so on, from behind the scenes talks, right? Symbolic capital, recognitions, opportunities, social capital members, networks, and so on and so forth. And the argument is these social capital actually is something that empowers the individual, according to this theory. Great. I had found other theories as well, but I didn't want to pile it on over here. Sounds too much like a desk research, right? So I'll try to look at that. And I've looked at what models do we actually have out there? Am I the first one to think of something like this? No, because what I said in the beginning of this talk, actually, what I mentioned was that there were some conversations I've had in classrooms, outside classrooms, and social groups. One of the conversations I had was, it was a fellow colleague, actually, he's not a teacher though, it was a fellow colleague who was reflecting upon how when he stayed in the US and he felt so close to the host family. And I remember I'm like, oh, and again, another person talking about this. Why do I say another person? My brother, he lived in the US. Okay, I went off to university in Canada. My brother was already in university in the States. Two seemingly very similar educational models. But what they had very much entrenched in the American system is, like, for international students, they would have host families. Right? Some people are already aware of this. In Canada, nobody cares. You had the international department. It was all good. I felt very much that I belonged. But my conversations with my brother, I'm like, what is this? You're going on and about your host family. Okay. And then, I never thought, that thought never came back to me. It's been years. I won't tell you how many since university's been done with. But then I, heard this other colleague speaking about his host families. I'm guessing he's slightly younger than me. Yeah. Then I looked at, okay, host families, right? That's where the thought came to me. The amount of, positivity with which that person, that colleague, and my brother spoke about this host families, it's just a little mind-boggling for me. I didn't quite get it. I was like, okay, fine, good. Somebody there that you enjoy time with, good, okay. But they're like, no, Blessy, just a second. Just hear me out. Such a lovely person. I'm like, okay, good, nice. Well, EU offers this sort of situation, yeah. So I was still part of the research. EU has the Erasmus Plus, and the Erasmus Plus is mostly for universities, but it's also like they do connect high schools, but it's really public high schools, actually, okay? But they do it across EU, right? We saw the US model where it is about international students coming in and them having host families that these students can have a sense of belonging with, which is great. EU does it across EU countries to sort of kind of get the cultures within the EU to merge and feel and see and live together. Because immersion works is what they say on their site. Immersion works, and they believe it's related to, even for language immersion, cultural immersion, appreciation of what these other countries within the EU and lifestyles within the EU may bring. I want to reflect also on, things that we do well, right? Okay, we most recently had this debate team going off to Italy. An experiment, because I call it an experiment simply because it's a first-time relationship with the school that's there. It's a public school, actually, yes, but it was a champion. It is a champion school in Italy. The profile of the students quite different from the profile of our own students, quite different, right? So it kind of matches the Erasmus sort of effort. Okay, I just latched on to one thing that I was involved in, but we do quite a bit of these. But yes, what am I proposing? My proposal is not just for us, for our own children, for building life skills. We do gain even when we create some sort of a solution that brings differences together. Everybody in the equation can gain and bring society together. My proposal is basically, if every rural student studying in Romania, when they come into the city, if they had a vetted host family, maybe there is a micro solution to this growing macro problem that we have. This micro solution is a touchy-feely sort of solution. It is not but it is a worked out solution in all these different contexts. So you've seen Erasmus Plus really works. People will say, whoever knows of somebody who has gone to something like this will say, acknowledge that it works. The host families in the US, it really works. I mean, my brother is somebody with very strong opinions, so he wouldn't really just go and just praise this initiative to Kingdom Come unless it genuinely felt real. And solutions are there. They can have a ripple effect. You can increase retention. You can reduce polarization, because a parallel such experiment was experiment, maybe wrong word. People don't like to be experimented on. We're not guinea pigs, but wrong word there. So I'll take that back. But instead, if we look at it as a solution to society, right? Empathy will flow both ways, right? The number of times we've seen very polarized opinions on politics right now, hopefully we can have solutions like this that can wind that down, hopefully. I propose, therefore, a call to action. Hopefully, some of us can be engaged in, or at least partner with institutions that do something like this. The call to action is to try out a pilot while we as a school would do pilots that will bring different parties together, give children opportunities to engage, to reflect. We can, as a society, also try it out, right? So hopefully we will do something of this sort going forward. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.